appreciate everyone jumping in. This discussion, I'm so excited about. We had originally planned this a couple of weeks ago, and just as life is, it was all meant to be pushed back 2 weeks, because the pushback a couple of weeks has provided us a really, really special opportunity to bring in fantastic panelists and expert members to join us for this discussion on being allies in anti-ableism, which is a topic that I know for some of us, we may be not as familiar with, or maybe we haven't heard about. And for others, this is in forefront of mind, whether it's at the facilities you work at or the organizations you're a part of, or even potentially a family member or a good friend. But this is something you're recognizing, not just the allyship and the care, but now us actually taking steps to be anti-ableism, and kind of goes in with everything that we've done in the last couple of Coffees in Progress, and we continue to want to do through the Coffees in Progress in the future. Very quick introduction. My name is Candace Fabry. I am calling out of Kansas City, Kansas. I am the owner of Fearless and Capable, a female mentorship program for women working in sports. But that, hit me up later if you want to talk about. I want to talk with the people that we have here, because it is an amazing, amazing group. And as Rachel alluded to, and very quickly, I'll give Rachel and Pip and Courtney a shout out, because they are the fearless leaders. I'm going to throw fearless in when I can. The fearless leaders of the Women in Soccer Network, and the things that they are doing to bring education and resources and knowledge on a regular basis really can't, be passed up. They need the acknowledgement. So Rachel, if you just want to give a quick hi, and then we'll go Pip and Courtney, just briefly, so we can get to these really, really cool panelists.
Absolutely. Candace, thank you so much. It is always such a pleasure running these events with you. You are the host with the most, and it is wonderful getting to connect. Thank you everyone for being here. As Candace said, Rachel LaSala, Managing Director with Women in Soccer. It is an honor to be here with all of you. Pip?
Yeah, likewise. Thank you all for joining the call. It's a topic that's really important to us as we just push to make the game as inclusive as possible for everyone. Yeah, thanks. I'm the content producer at Women in Soccer, and we'll be discussing some resources on the topic later on, because I like my job as Wes librarian sometimes on all these different topics. So thank you all.
Courtney, you there?
Hi, squad. Just wanted to say thank you and good morning. Happy Friday. We started this network to build community. So sitting here with community that spans from the East Coast to the West Coast and everything in between is a real thrill, and we're so excited that you're here. Representation in this beautiful game that's been hijacked by people who want to keep the beauty for themselves is not what soccer is. And so we're on our mission to make our community a place where everybody feels welcome, invited, and heard. And so we're on this journey with Candace and Fearless and Capable, and we couldn't be more excited to bring as many people into our community to talk about representation as possible. Thank you.
Absolutely. And thank you, Wiz, for giving me the opportunity. Very quick shout out, like we kind of mentioned, if you missed it, there is a sponsor for Coffee in Progress that actually serves coffee, and it is called Kick Off Coffee Company. I wanted to make sure I had that correct. Rachel can give all the details, and I'm sure in the wrap up of all this conversation, you do receive an email with the resources and recordings, and then a fun little link way to the coffee, Kickoff Coffee. I've ordered it. I'm enjoying it. So I am advocating that this is good coffee. Maybe Bryce, who's drinking the black coffee, this might be right up your alley. It's a good, strong, bold flavor. So before I very quickly want to get to the panelists that we have here, I want to remind everybody that one, the conversation is going to be recorded. You should have gotten that notification. Number two, the chat is open. Rachel does a great job helping to monitor that and maybe nudges me if there's something really great in the chat to make sure to look for. But this is an engaging conversation. And so we have amazing panelists that are experts and have lived experiences in so many different ways within the game and sport that we will definitely bring and ask them questions. But all of our audience members are absolutely able and possible to ask questions, whether it's raising your hand, whether it's unmuting, putting it in the chat. This is really, we've we've hijacked Starbucks or your favorite local coffee joint, and we're all here together. That's the idea. And so we're just going to talk, and nothing is super formal. Nothing is going to be, taken to a massive way of disrespect, but we want to make sure that the language is respectful. And we have a big calling culture that we really value, and Women in Soccer has done a great job in making that. So there may be things said today, and I respectfully ask that everyone abides by that calling culture, respectfully saying, hey, listen, this is something that maybe you don't realize, an action or a word or a phrase that is actually hurtful. And we want to make sure that that is listened to and engaged and understood. And, apologies might happen in this. I already know that there was something I put in the agenda for these fantastic panelists that I got called in for, and I was super, super appreciative. Ronnie, a shout out to her last night, sending me a nice note to say, hey, just as a heads up, this was something you mentioned in the agenda that, probably is kind of a microaggression at the end of the day. And I sincerely appreciated that. So realize that is part of this community, a part of this discussion. So hopefully you can be a part of those rules. But again, it's engaging. All right. So if you have questions, please don't hesitate to ask myself or any of these amazing panelists we have with it. So let's get to the panelists. I keep telling you how great they are, and I am like jittery at not just the coffee, but the people we have joining. So first, Julie O'Neill Dussliere. I think that was the last. Did I get it? Fantastic. So Julie has the Team USA logo in the background. She is the Chief of Paralympic Sport at United States Olympic and Paralympic Committee. Julie, do you want to just unmute very quick, say hi?
Sure thing. Good morning, everyone. I am not a coffee drinker, unfortunately, so I'm sitting here with I don't know if you guys can see it, my Diet Coke, which is my normal morning drink, but super excited to be here and chat with you all this morning.
Well, appreciate it, Julie, and no worries, Diet Coke that's like later in the day for me sometimes. The next panelist we have is Bryce Boarman, and anytime, and I'm going to we've got 2 representatives of national teams here, so I am a little geeked out, a little fangirl. I'm going to go to Bryce first. Bryce, a major star of the American Paralympic 7-a-side, correct, men's team. Bryce, if you want to go ahead and mute real quick and kind of say a quick hello.
Hey, everyone. Awesome to be here. I'll do my best to live up to those big, bold titles that were just thrown out there. But the only caveat I'll throw out there is retired at this point. But yes, was a 7-a-side player for about 10 years.
Did you happen to play for Jay Hoffman?
I played for Jay Hoffman for the first half of my career, and then Stuart Sharp for the second half.
Okay, fantastic. Jay's a friend of my family, so I was excited I wanted to ask you, honestly, my husband was like, ooh, did he play for Jay? So I'm fangirling for my husband as well at this point in time. So awesome, Bryce, very excited to have you. I'm gonna go on to our next USA representative, Sydney Andrews, who I got to find out lives or is from about 2 hours from where I currently live. So we have a reason to connect now when she comes into town. Sydney Andrews is captain of the US Deaf Women's National Soccer Team. She's also a youth rep on the USA Deaf Soccer Association. And I keep going. She's also part of the Adapt and Thrive working group under US Soccer's Disability Soccer Committee. And I'm pretty sure, Sydney, I'm not done yet with that list of things you're doing. But if you can unmute real quick and say hello to everybody.
All right, hello everybody. So nice to meet you. I'm really excited to be here. Yeah, I'm looking forward to the conversation.
Yeah, thank you, Sydney. Appreciate it. And our final one is a good friend of mine that I got to meet through a couple years ago, Coffee in Progress. I used to hold on a very much smaller scale within my local Iowa community that started to kind of filter out. Was the fantastic Ronnie Andrews. And Ronnie comes to us from Wisconsin. Ronnie, I'm gonna be honest, I'm surprised I don't see your knitting needles this morning, but maybe that's something that's happening earlier or later. I always love when she's knitting and giving us great advice at the same time. But Ronnie's a top soccer coach in the TOPSoccer program coming out of US Youth Soccer and a program director in Wisconsin. So if Ronnie, if you can say hello very quickly.
Hello from Wisconsin. We got the chill in here today, so the coffee is good. I'm drinking out of a handmade with a llama. To
Ooh.
represent the knitting section there, just saying. Yeah, the needles are aside because I can't concentrate and knit at the same time. I'm just like one track.
Yeah, that is.
Yeah.
I love it though. That's a fantastic segue to focusing on one thing, which is going to be this allyship and anti-ableism. And so there's a lot of things we want to cover in this. And the first thing I want to do is just give a quick transition to Pip. Pip is going to be the resource mecca of this, and she's done such a great job researching, and she's going to continue to build on these resources. So Pip, if you just want to unmute for a quick second, if you're still in there, just kind of give some people what are some resources they should be expecting coming from this call and then afterwards.
Great, yeah, thanks Candice. Yeah, there'll be an extended version of resources that will hit all of your inboxes afterwards, but I'll just run through a couple of highlights of resources. I've tried to pick sort of dynamic things from films, podcasts, articles, depending on how people want to engage and listen into different, articles and things. So some organisations to highlight: United Soccer Coaches, the Disability Allies Group, and they are all about creating a community for athletes with disabilities and coaches with disabilities to share their own experiences and ideas. TOPSoccer, of course, and we have a representative right here, which is super exciting. Move United is another thing I've highlighted. Power Soccer, which is a rapidly growing adaptive sport that's changing the way we think about people using a chair. It's really exciting. Some of the articles that I've highlighted, one is a profile on Carson Pickett called "I Use What God Gave Me," and it's about her life as a professional one-handed player. And the Orlando Pride fullback just talks a lot in this article about how she uses her position to inspire people with any body types to love the beautiful game. Another type of article that I've included is about the fan perspective and what it might feel like for a disabled fan to engage in soccer. So it talks about how the needs of these fans can't be ignored when spectator sports returns, which has, and stadiums reopen. So how we can make facilities as inclusive for people who want to watch the game. Some podcasts, Burn It All Down is a favourite in the network, and that's an intersectional feminist podcast. And in the episode that I highlight in the document, it talks through how disability activists in Japan have been using the Paralympics as a catalyst to push for further social change. Another one I highlighted was Kick It Like a Girl by Rachel Yankee, and it's a profile on her because she's one of the UK's most celebrated and decorated football players, and England national team player, and an Arsenal player for ages. And she's also really dyslexic, which is something that's really important to me. I'm the writer and content producer for Women in Soccer. I'm also extremely dyslexic, and I combine my love of writing and literature and soccer in this job position. But it of course means that there's adaptations that our team uses, that I work with Rachel to, work as a dyslexic writer who also loves sports and combine all those things together. So this is a really good podcast to highlight how many dyslexic people find themselves in this game, and the type of coaching methods and other things that people can, use to overcome the adaptations they might need. A film that I absolutely love, and I'd love to hear anyone else's thoughts on it if they've seen it, is called Rising Phoenix. It's a new Netflix release that talks about the Paralympic Games, and the film really captures how the Paralympics sparked a global movement that continues to this day to change the way we think about disability, diversity, and infinite potential through sports. I've also highlighted a few YouTube videos that basically talk about accessible soccer drills, some of the more conventional drills, and how they can be adapted for people who use walkers, crutches, and other walking aids. And that's from universities around America that specialise in adaptive soccer programs. So those are some of the resources, and I'll hit you with the extended list. So yeah, thanks, and that's I've got to kick us off, Candice.
That's just some resources, by the way, if you notice that word from her. So I think, when we talk about Coffee in Progress, the whole deal here is that obviously we enjoy the time that we get to spend together, but we also think about the progress that can be made coming out of this call. And so I challenge each and every one of you, when you walk away from this, have an idea, a thought, maybe an action, maybe somebody you want to connect with in this network that's on the call, that you can find time to think about the progress we can really make in this space. And so to help us with a little bit of background understanding, Julie, I'm going to call on you first. Give us a little bit of understanding thoughts to the Paralympic movement.
Sure, I'd be happy to. And we could talk about the Paralympic movement all day, so I'll try to keep it brief. But happy to take questions in the chat or after the meeting as well, if there's kind of areas people want to delve into. One of the things I always like to start with when I talk about the Paralympic movement is the origins of the word Paralympic. Many times people think that it is tied to paraplegia, which it is not. It's actually devolves from the Greek word for parallel, meaning that they are the parallel games to the Olympic Games. So that's just one of those little fun facts that we like to highlight to emphasize that the Paralympics are about elite sporting performance and are parallel to the Olympic Games, which are also about elite sporting performance. The reference to Rising Phoenix is perfect. If you're interested in the history of the movement, you can do a lot of digging around online, but just watching that film as well kind of dives into how the Paralympics originated, which were actually called the Stoke Mandeville Games back in 1948, coming out of World War II. Sir Ludwig Gutmann, who is kind of the father of the Paralympic movement, so to speak, put together a games in Stoke Mandeville in the UK to parallel the Olympic Games that were taking place in 1948 in London, coming out of the war, and specifically focused on injured service members who had been injured during World War II. So there's a lot of ties to, military and veteran populations within the Paralympic movement, even still today. That is, that's a population where we have many, many athletes who come into the movement from the various conflicts around the world, not only here in the US, but other countries as well. A couple of quick highlights about the games themselves. There are 27 Paralympic sports currently, 22 on the Summer Games program and 5 on the Winter Games program. A spread of sports, team sports, individual sports, indoor, outdoor. There's a broad spectrum, but we can provide some resources of the lists of what those sports are and who can participate. And in terms of who can participate, there are 10 eligible impairments that the International Paralympic Committee defines that are eligible to be included in the Paralympic movement. The unique nuance is that each international sport federation decides which of those 10 they include in their sport. So some sports might include only 1 or maybe 2 of those 10 impairments, while other sports might include all 10. So the landscape is pretty fluid and varies dramatically sport by sport. So with that, I'm going to turn it back over to you, Candace, and I'm happy to take questions as we go here.
Yeah, absolutely. And folks, don't forget, you can unmute and put your hand up there and put stuff in the chat. Julie, the question I'm going to leave everybody with when we talk about progress is having a female 5-a-side or 7-a-side team. Bryce, love supporting and cheer. Ross Moffat, I don't know, he might have been an assistant. I'm like name dropping to Bryce because I know some of the coaches that he played for, but always a big fan of what you guys are doing. And then obviously, when you guys are in competition mode, or when you were, I know you're retired now, always supporting what you guys do, but we would love a women's team. So progress step in everybody's back of the mind is, how can we get a 5-a-side, 7-a-side team and representing US? But shifting gears a little bit, Sydney, as a captain of a national team, tell us a little bit about your experience. I mean, yeah, absolutely, Pip. Everybody, a little round of applause. When we can say we have a captain on the line, and anyone's chance to talk to somebody who's represented our country is always a pleasure and really an honor. So Sydney, a little bit about your experience with the team. What are events coming up that you're excited about? And just kind of, how is the team operating now? What do we have to look forward to support you guys and cheer you guys on?
Yeah, thank you for that. Thank you for the introduction. There's so much to say. Been on the team for 10 years and so much has happened in 10 years, and I'm so excited for the next 10 years. We kind of have a new group of players, just like the full national team. They have a new group of players coming in. We got a new group of players coming in that's just going to lead the way, and I'm really excited about where that's going to go. I think it's just been an incredible experience to represent the US and to put on that jersey. Not only is it a great opportunity for me to play at the highest level, but I also feel like a responsibility that we are representing a group of people outside of just Americans, but also just we're representing the spectrum of deafness. And so right now we're gearing up to play next year in May in Brazil for the Deaf Olympics. So I'm super pumped. We're getting ready for that. We have camp in January, just training, trying to get the best players out there on the field. But also within that space, we're growing in that space. There's been a small number of individuals that we've been able to identify. and that number is growing. So our pool is growing, the talent is growing, inclusivity and access is growing, and we can always get better. But I'm really, really looking forward to the future of the team.
That's amazing. And Sydney, just again, goosebumps to what May can look like for you guys in Brazil. One, jealous you're going to Brazil on the first note. So if you need, anybody to tag along, I'm happy to do that for you, Sydney. The inclusivity part and the access, like what are maybe one or two things that you think has been that access point or that inclusivity that has given the program that much more of a deeper player pool at the end of the day? What's happening in that space for you guys?
Yeah, so it's kind of a mix. So we have two new coaches. They came on board in 2016. We have Amy Griffin and Joy Fawcett, which are national team players. They
not a bad mix to learn from, is it? Man, fantastic. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. So bringing them in and having their perspective, but also having their support. And kind of pushing us to shoot higher and to play at a higher level and to not just accept that this is what we're going to get and ask for more, because we all of us, no matter what program or disability soccer organization we play for, we all deserve the best, and we all are the best, and so we should get that. So it's a combination of that, but then also social media has really been huge for us. So we're tapping into the college program, we're tapping into social media, we're tapping into all of these different things that we never had access to before. And it's really just like widening our spectrum of who we can reach, and people are just knocking on our door, and we love it. We're welcoming them in, and now we're going to have a bright future in the next 10 years. So it's awesome.
I love it, Sydney. And if you're cool with it, totally up to you. If you want to put those handles, those tags that you think is social media that the people on this call could follow, that would be great in the chat, and we'll make sure to also follow up with that. So awesome, Sydney, so cool. And tell Joy I said hi. She has no clue who I am, but you can tell her I said hi. And just kind of keeping on that player perspective, and honestly coming out of now the fact that you're retired, Bryce, I'd love to hear about your experience, because you guys had some success as well. If I'm not wrong on that, you got some stuff to brag about. You don't have to brag too much if you don't want to, but I'd love to hear about your experience, especially, within the games and how it's really come out, and maybe even how retirement's going for you. Are you still playing? That might be my number one question, Bryce. Are you still playing?
I am playing very casually. I have found myself in an over 30 indoor league, which to hear the word over 30,
it only gets better. It only gets better. Wait till the over 40 league. So you're good. You're absolutely, I love it, Bryce. And I love the word casual. I think I'm going to start using that in describing how I play. So thank you for adding that word to my vocabulary. So yeah, sorry, go ahead.
No, the experience with the national team, I always tell people it meant everything to me, and that sounds potentially dramatic, but when I think about like where I am in life and my goals and the opportunities I had, I think I'll start with saying the opportunity to be on the national team was unexpected when I came into the program. I joined the team based on a chance encounter and got connected to people who knew about the team. And the coolest part about my journey through my playing career was that is changing, and there are the awareness of the team has gone way up. The opportunities for the team, the awareness, and the kids coming up today could potentially go on US Soccer's website or find CP Soccer US or all these different opportunities. And so the funding, the support, and everything through the years to watch that grow was incredible. And then ultimately, a lot of the people, the team behind the team, the people who supported me, gained so much respect for them, and it really shaped what I wanted to do. And so now, as I've sort of transitioned into a normal job or a normal work life, it's totally shaped what I'm doing now.
In what ways, Bryce? Why would you say that? I love that statement at the end, but what's that shaping for you nowadays, that experience you've had?
Yeah, well, I think it was just the dedication it takes to support athletes and support teams and help people reach goals, and not like, there's so much when a team is successful. There's so many people behind the scenes that make that happen, and they never get the credit. But in some ways, I love that. And so as I transitioned out of playing, had opportunities to work with US Soccer, with some Paralympic NGBs, and now and spent some time in USOP with the USOPC in the Paralympic division and Julie, and now I'm currently in the Ombuds office. And so for those who don't know what an Ombuds is, we're essentially an independent resource for athletes when they have questions or concerns about navigating policies, processes, things that could be complicated within the movement. So I think just seeing how much was given to me and that opportunity to give back to athletes now and kind of be one of the people behind the scenes making it happen, but don't ever get the credit, I'm totally okay with, because I got to see it happen for so many years.
That's amazing. And yeah, it's sometimes the team behind the team that we need to elevate sometimes and really give the credit to. And Bryce, to hear and know that you're now the man behind them is just awe-inspiring, that you understand, you're advocating, and you're just, I mean, this is the first time I'm actually meeting you face to face, virtually face to face. And yeah, like, just keep kicking booty and taking names. I'm watching my language on this call, but it's just amazing, like, that the team behind the team, and guys, each and every one of us are on this call are the team behind the team. And how can we be that team that starts to make sure that anti-ableism is at the forefront, not just at the adult level. And that's why I think it's really crucial that we also bring in Ronnie Andrews into this conversation. Ronnie deals with the TOPSoccer program and is a director of that program out of Wisconsin. And so Ronnie, can you just give us a quick kind of background on what you're doing with TOPSoccer, what the benefits you have seen in bringing that to the community that you work in? And when I say community, I know we're talking like the state of Wisconsin. We're not just talking a little mecca there. So yeah, can you give us a little bit more there?
Sure, my friend, we are talking about the whole country because this program stretches, it's a US youth national program, and the connections, the cool thing about the program is the connections are like none I have ever experienced before. And the passion that the program has of bringing the game to like literally anybody that wants to play. It's an inclusive program. It's a program that doesn't focus on how much you can or can't do. If you have a child who needs to be held up by two parents walking around in a circle kicking a ball, that's TOPSoccer. You have a league operating out of Minnesota that has high school to adults that are playing in a regular league structure. It runs everything in between, and it can adapt to anything, and anybody can be a part of it. And that's the cool thing about the program. So I've been involved with it for about 15 years now. And it really is just, like I said, it's one of those programs. I think the neat thing is it's very, very grassroots, and it is what's going to start building the programs like Bryce is involved in, where you're starting to identify kids and getting that game out to kids who maybe would have never been seen before. It's a lot like grassroots soccer in the regular structure of things. And that's kind of where TOPSoccer, I think the piece that TOPSoccer brings, the structure of everything.
Yeah. And I know the work you do. Go ahead, Rachel. Sorry.
Ronnie, where else does TOPSoccer operate? Where else are there locations?
Oh my gosh. So like, we're trying to make sure that every state association has some sort of TOPSoccer program attached to it, but all 4 regions have so there's a national structure, there's regional structure. State of Wisconsin has it, Minnesota, the Midwest region, there's 7 or 8 states that have TOPSoccer programs that operate. The East Coast has them, Southeast has them, Southwest has them, and then the Northeast has them as well. So it's everywhere. Ohio, Oregon, California, Vegas, Massachusetts, Pennsylvania, New York. It's everywhere. But people don't always know about it because I think you go right to Special Olympics when you think of grassroots sport for disability. And it's not a program like, it doesn't stand on its own. It's under the umbrella of US Soccer. It's soccer specific. And the structure of it is very different than Special Olympics. And that's the job that we're up against right now, is getting the word out to people that this program does exist.
Yeah. And I think that's been everybody's mention, is that it's the knowledge, it's the promotion of that these opportunities exist. So if we're thinking progress steps, what can every one of you do outside of this call, to promote a program that maybe you just found out about? Maybe it's Sydney's team, maybe it's the Paralympic team. How can we be better about providing those pathways? Social media is such an easy way. Retweet, like, share. It takes a click to just make sure that somebody else knows about it. And I know as a parent, when we find these opportunities that we all want to provide all of our children, knowing when these programs are possible for youth, Ronnie, is really great. And I know the work you do on a national level is appreciated. I was at a conference in August, and I mentioned I knew Ronnie, and all I had to say was Ronnie, not even her last name, and TOPSoccer, and they were like, yes, Ronnie does great work. And that's what we want, is we want people that are going to truly be allies in this space. And so that's kind of where I turn and I look and I see Bernadette saying, let's reach out. Bernadette, I'm kind of calling you out in the chat to reach out with Ronnie. What are things that you guys, and this is our panelists, this is everybody on the call, what are steps that you believe you can take outside of this, next steps, and being an ally in this space? What are things that you have maybe done or could do to help this anti-ableism be something that is a part of our daily thought process and things that we do when we look at the spaces and people around us? Open to anybody, unmute, feel free.
Oh, I know even Bernadette, your story of how you've worked with TOPSoccer in different locations, and you would love to know how you can do more. But I think for one, from the perspective of women in soccer, women in soccer is titled Women in Soccer, but it is really encompassing anyone that believes in the mission of how do we create more access for those that have been marginalized in soccer for so long. So how can we ensure we're creating more outreach and more targeted resources for folks that haven't been seen, that including those that are inside of these disability spaces. And so I'm trying to consider where we go from here and continue to diversify the panels and diversify the events in which we host, and ensure that all voices are heard and represented, not necessarily just on a call dedicated to one that is focused on anti-ableism, but that's one thing that came to mind for me.
Yeah. And each and every one of you can do a coffee in progress. Literally, this is it. It's a Zoom call, and you invite your people in and you find resources that are willing to jump on and talk, and do this in your own communities. That's where progress can really start, in my opinion. Courtney's added something into the chat. Let's spread the word. Normalize access as the grown-ups so the kids don't have to struggle to find a place. I think that's a really big piece to this, is we can be that link of information, that resource, and shout it loud. Yeah.
Right. Shout it loud. I have two sons who, my older son has hearing needs and wears hearing aids at school, and that technology has come so far, but it's like before that was discovered, his sport experience, right? I didn't know that his sport experience was compromised by the hearing challenge. And so because they don't know how to really understand that they might even have one too, they think it's just not for them, and like will withdraw, and like, oh, it's not a space for me. And so you really see the impact of not feeling that belief that things are available to you. right? And so, you know, as then it's like, once you're in this community, because my younger son has special needs as well, you start to see like, oh, there are these resources, but until you're in that space, you don't know that you're going to need to access them.
Mhm.
But we're in a conversation that's bringing access onto the table, conversation of sport experience and barriers to it, right? And so these barriers that exist and how our community can be resources for each other, especially now in this time where someone's in Minnesota and somebody's in Texas and somebody, you know, and I learned about TOPSoccer from the person in Minnesota, right? And now we get to do that, right? So
Yeah.
we're using this digital platform as these bridges for information, right? And I'm going to take the knowledge that I learned and got inspired by from this talk today and really use it with the communities that I'm now entrenched with my two sons. And
Absolutely.
so it's kind of taking that stigma out of the whole thing, and then finding the people who are intentionally in the business of deconstructing these stigmas by creating normalcy. And when it's normal, there's no stigma.
Right. And I think we're in a time everyone's laying all the cards out, I think, in a lot of realms, especially within the game. So Ronnie, I saw your hand up.
Trying to find my mute button there. Yeah, the one thing that I've experienced and I thought was really interesting was just watching the I think the barriers that you're talking about, Courtney, once the kid, like getting those kids involved. My Milwaukee program, so our TOPSoccer is structured so that the kids that come in that are coming in as athletes get paired up with buddies who are generally able-bodied kids. But I've blurred that line in my programs where I have higher functioning kids that are acting as coaches and acting as buddies for other kids. But the interesting thing is, in my Milwaukee program, everybody was like, no, high school kids are the age level where we want these kids to come in as buddies. They're looking at them as leaders and structures. But I look at the program more inclusively in that I've got, my Milwaukee group is divided into two age groups. There's littles and bigs, I call them. Now, like littles are all 5, 6, 7, 8-year-old kids. And I have 5, 6, 7, 8-year-old volunteers for buddies. And it's the first time I've ever done that. And it was the most successful thing that we did because those kids came in, played with the kids. Like there was no barriers. There was no difference whatsoever on that field when you took it out there. And the kids walked away like we went and played soccer. And that's the thing that I like seeing happen between the two communities, because like you said, until you're there, sometimes you just don't know. And so those experiences, they take those back to their everyday and normalize everything that we're talking about.
Yeah. And I think it's, if you're a youth club, one of the ideas I have, Ronnie, is, perhaps you're maybe not offering a top program, or TOPSoccer program, but you can reach out and find these communities that are offering these programs and buddy up with them, have their information on your website. Because surely a parent that is maybe looking for a soccer program that TOPSoccer may be the place they ultimately want to find, may not know it exists. And so they type in soccer program, or, look, it's not difficult with the internet these days, but the more we can shout it out at the top of our lungs that all of these great programs do exist, is going to be helpful. Any other ideas from the audience on how we can continue to be better allies?
One thing I'll throw out there is just inviting people with disability and with different perspectives to the table. Yeah. And that could be at the top levels, whether it's US Soccer or with Julie at US Paralympics, or at the lower levels, whether it's a a school planning event committee or whatnot, inviting these people with the diverse experiences and perspective to the table so that they can help you create a more inclusive environment, share perspective. One of the things that having any challenge in life does is it forces you to adapt and think about things in different ways, and oftentimes forces you to be better or think about things differently. So I think, again, whether it's grassroots or the top levels of sport, I think inviting people, whether it's planning committees, employment opportunities, or just even to go be part of the event is one thing we can all continue to do.
And that's such a crucial piece, Bryce. And I sincerely appreciate you bringing that point up. And, I think for all of us, when we're perhaps sometimes in spaces where we're not as knowledgeable about, and maybe this is, again, a topic that you are really in the know. We've had conversations on being allies with the LGBTQIA+ community. That's another one that if maybe that's not a space you're comfortable in, bringing people that are existing in these marginalized communities, we need to hear their voices. We need to listen. We need to sit and we need to give them that voice in there. Other ideas from the group? I've got a couple questions, but yeah, Sydney, go ahead.
Yeah, just to kind of piggyback off of what Bryce said, yeah, bringing those people into the spaces so they can speak to their experience, but also if you're in a space to amplify those voices. I think it's been really hard for I know for my experience, it's been really hard for our voice to even get somewhere to be heard. So if you're in those spaces to amplify. And then, if you're in a space where you're like, I don't really feel comfortable here, just being open to the experience and being willing to not be afraid to talk about these things. And we're all going to say things wrong or be corrected or whatever. And that's great. I get corrected and I'm in a disability space. I live it every day and I get corrected, and that's okay, and that's what makes me better. So just being open to new experiences and not being afraid to talk about it. I think growing up, like parents would, kids would look at my ears and they would be like, oh my God, what's that? And, the parents would be like, oh, don't point or don't whatever. And it's like, I get that. And we have to make sure that people are open and willing to talk about their experience. But also, I don't think it should be treated as a taboo. We should be able to talk about these things, and this is a normal part of everyday life for many people. So
yeah, thank you, Sydney. I appreciate you sharing that, and so true. Roberto, I see you with your hand up. I love that you're joining the conversation. Thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you. Eddie Vesta from Pure Game, and I've had the opportunity to work with Joy for the past couple of years. So I really like the opportunity to kind of create those coffee in process. Especially for us, because we work with 50 different schools here in Orange County, and a big initiative that we put in play was in terms of helping LGBTQ youth, and a big thing that helped that initiative was having staff within that background, and now we're trying to focus more on growing participation in women and other areas. But a big thing that we're struggling in is kind of how do we find individuals that are in that space to come and do the programming, because I think all of you have spoken about, as a kid, when you see, an adult in that space and see what they can do, really reflects on what they're capable of doing. So from our end, I really like the opportunities and within TOPSoccer to kind of bring in those resources and bring in, more staff members that represent those different communities to be able to provide those opportunities for the kids that we work with, because we work within schools. We have a diverse, amount of kids that come from all different backgrounds.
Yeah, I think it's important, as much as, the Paralympics and the Olympics are an important year, and amplify that voice and put those in front of, adults and children. I think of college age students. I know we've got some people that work in the college and high school age. It's crucial at those turning points where there's a lot going on. And for some, a disability or might be something where, going to Courtney's point, they may feel like they're not, able, or it's not going to be possible. And that withdrawal maybe starts to happen. So kind of going off your question, guys, where can we pull in resources to help with that education, to help with that representation, to help with the modeling and the pathways that we can show athletes that are, ample in opportunity? And what do we think? What are some places we can go? What are things we can share?
First, I'm like, just can't stop thinking about like the opportunity for is it Heriberto?
Yes, or Addie, if it's easier, no worries.
Thank you, Addie. I'm glad the OC is here with us this morning. Thanks for waking up. That sounds like jobs and like a real opportunity, right? Like coaching representation in this space, and athletes as they're transitioning, Bryce and Sydney, from your teams, right? Can you see yourselves as coaches, right? And can we see coaches coming out of these spaces to be in these positions that Addie needs them to be in, that other organizations that are trying to increase access and representation need them to be in. And so, sorry, my thread just got hijacked with like, let's start a fellowship, Addie. I'm sure there's some cool things that are happening that, this is a great network for you to really access, because here you have Ronnie with TOPS, and you have these other really important figures in this space. Yeah. And this is why we started this, so that you would come on this call and learn who the players are in this space, right, Ronnie? Yeah. And like a whole coaching curriculum can be born, but it has to start with it being a conversation, right? Yeah. And so we're happy to kick that off, but an intentional conversation around what do we do next, right?
Yeah, I want to pivot real quick, Ronnie. I do see your hand up, but Julie just threw something really good into the chat that I want to see if we can elaborate a little bit on. And Ronnie, I promise you're next. That if you didn't miss it in the chat, it says transitioning retired athletes into coaching and high performance positions is a key initiative for use within the Paralympic sport, NGBs. So what's that looking like, Julie, right now? Like, what are things that we could do in that space to help support? If it's, again, share a job opportunity, or what could we do to help with mentorship? What do you see happening or needing?
Yeah, I think it's everything, right? It's I would say it's very organic. It's not a formal program. And Rachel, I see your note in the chat. There's not, a formal program document or strategic plan around that, but it's something we've been working with quite a few of the sport NGBs, if not all of them, to really look at, how can you transition a retired athlete who's interested in moving into that space in their career into high performance management? You could be the administrative side of the sport, or into the coaching on the field of play. So, I think it comes down to a couple things. It comes down to identifying and working with those athletes who are interested, and mentoring them and getting them into the job field in the respective sport, whatever that might look like at various levels. And it's also, kind of a word of mouth of, hey, going out and doing some targeted recruitment. Right. Every 4 years in the Olympic and Paralympic world, we know that a batch of athletes are going to retire from being athletes full time. So, some of that is just being thoughtful in advance, doing that targeted recruiting, and then getting those mentorships in place to help athletes find the path into that career.
Yeah, we'll get on the mentorship train at the very end. Maybe I'll throw a little thought process out to you. Ronnie, what were you going to share? And I apologize again for kind of skipping that, but yeah, go for it.
No, that's actually a good segue, because that's what I was going to elaborate on. Even in my programs, we're already looking at those kids, because originally TOPSoccer was an age out program. 18, you were done. And a lot of us have canceled the age cap on it, and we have some adult programs and things like that. But we're actually, like, I have in my programs, I have kids that I have targeted as they're going into their 20s and those transition years, that we're targeting them for those mentorship and those leadership positions and those coaching positions and getting them on field, because that wasn't thought of, like even, 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago, that was not thought of as part of the process. It was like you were an athlete or you were a buddy or you were a coach, and nobody, there were no blurred lines. So now we are starting to take that initiative to where we're starting to introduce some of these kids that we've had into those coaching roles, or even assistant coaching roles or administration roles. So that's been a really huge thing. The other thing is connecting to the other programs, and like TOPSoccer connecting to Special Olympics. We have in our area, we have what's called WASA, which is Wisconsin Adaptive Sport Association. And it's all levels. Like TOPS tends to be a more cognitive disability type program. This is like all the levels with it was targeted with veterans, much like the CP program originally had started, and the brain injuries and things like that. The WASA is a lot of wheelchair basketball, wheelchair lacrosse, that sort of thing, and connecting with those programs and getting those guys, because they're really good at getting their athletes transitioning into coaching roles. They're really good at it.
Yeah, no, it's all amazing. I know when I was, looking at some items and I saw the power soccer and the women's number at 20%, I felt like, all right, what can I do to help in this space? How can I amplify? How can we have female coaches in that? And, to wrap this up, because again, I promise everything is under an hour so that you can get on to whatever next appointment you have on the hour, whether it's a work appointment or maybe an appointment for you, maybe to go walk, read a book, maybe go play a little bit, a casual play, to Bryce's words there, and thinking about what we can do coming out of this conversation. And, a lot of what I do with Fearless and Capable is putting mentorship at the forefront, and especially for marginalized groups. So I'm fortunate Ronnie has joined my program as a mentor. I'm especially hoping that she can help to support more females to look into programs like TOPSoccer and working with people with disabilities in the sports space. And so Julie, at some point, I'd love to chat with you about this, and really trying to, for women, for anyone in the spaces that are feeling like they have not had the opportunities or the access to have mentorship. I never want anyone to feel isolated. And that is part of why I hop onto these calls, is because there are so many mentors on this call that you can reach out to, ask questions, get advice. You can do it so organically, and you can also do it through programs like Fearless and Capable. So I would love to chat with any of you that have it. But again, there are so many amazing people on this call, really great ideas. I appreciate everyone's trust in sharing opinions and thoughts and experiences. That is what makes this Coffee in Progress so rewarding. I know I'm always jazzed up when I leave these, and I hope everyone else has that same feeling. As a reminder, it is progress. I saw a lot of you drinking coffee. So the coffee part, we nailed, folks. The progress is all what starts when we leave this call. So please, an action, a thought, a retweet, a follow, even at the end of the day, we'll start continuing this conversation that is so important and needs to go nowhere but more frequently, at the top of mind of what we can do to make sports, and I'll be honest, specifically soccer or football, whatever way you want to call it, growing in inclusivity and honestly passion, because it connects so many of us in so many different ways. So I want to say a special thank you to all of you that have joined on, our panelists, Julie and Sydney and Bryce and Ronnie, and I know Anne-Marie is also a connection to the Paralympic Committee. And so Anne-Marie sat here as a great resource leading up to this. So thank you, Anne-Marie, for joining us as well and being such a great resource in this call. For everyone on it, thank you so much. I know from the WIS Network, we are really, really appreciative of you joining, and we look forward to hosting more of these. And please check us out at womeninsoccer.org and fearlessandcapable.com. Thank you guys. Have a wonderful day.
Bye,
Thanks.
everybody. Thank you.